Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Unman Bhattacharya. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to respond to a debate on 75th anniversary of India's constitution in Lok Sabha today. 7 stranded Indians arrive in New Delhi from conflict-ridden Syria. And in sports, rain forces early stumps at Gabba, Australia at 28-0 at the end of 13.2 overs. Lower House of Parliament Lok Sabha resumed special discussion on Saturday on the glorious journey of 75 years of the Constitution of India. The lower house began proceedings with Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju highlighting the work done by the Minority Commission of India, stating that it is only India that has such a commission, unlike any other country. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is scheduled to respond to the debate later in the day.
जो Minority Commission यहाँ बनाया गया है उसका नाम है नेशनल कमीशन ऑफ माइनॉरिटीज एक्ट। मैंने चेक किया है किसी दूसरे राष्ट्र में ऐसा कमीशन अलग से नहीं बनाया गया है। हमारे देश में जितना माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटीज है, चाहे वो मुस्लिम हो, सिख हो, ईसाई हो, बौद्ध हो, पारसी हो, जैन हो, सबके लिए लीगल प्रोटेक्शन ही नहीं, उसके लिए अफर्मेटिव एक्शंस का जो प्रावधान है वो भी दूसरे देशों का तुलना में कई अधिक प्रावधान हमारे देश में रखा गया है।
The Rajya Sabha is scheduled to take up the special discussion on the Constitution on Monday and Tuesday. Prime Minister Modi is expected to respond to the debate on Tuesday in the upper house. Now we tell you about what's happening in West Asia, especially in the conflict zone of Syria. A series of explosions have rocked Damascus as Israel has been hitting strategic areas across Syria, particularly in and around the capital. Footage from Syria's capital, Damascus, showed a fireball on the horizon, followed by the sound of a powerful explosion. The explosion took place after the Islamist-led rebels took control of the city, ending Assad's rule. Thousands of Syrians gathered in Damascus and other cities across the country to celebrate the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime, ending 5 decades of rule by his family. In Damascus, people gathered at the iconic Umayyad Mosque for prayers before the jubilant rallies called by the Islamist rebels who led the armed uprising against Assad. People waved the flag of the Syrian opposition and chanted revolutionary songs and slogans. Among them were men in black combat gear wearing body armor and carrying guns. A delegation from Qatar will visit Syria on a Sunday for meetings with officials in its transitional government following the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad. Qatar, that has been accepted as a major mediator for negotiations in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas, may also play a major role in stabilization of Syria and begin humanitarian aid. Qatar's foreign ministry in a statement said that they will coordinate for peace in Syria and try to ensure flow of aid in war-torn country. They are also supposed to open their embassy that they had closed since July 2011 in protest against the then Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's treatment of the uprising. Unlike other Arab countries, Qatar never restored diplomatic ties with Syria under Assad. Qatar now has established contacts with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham or HTS, which spearheaded the ouster of the former government in Damascus. Jordan will host United States, European Union, Turkish and Arab diplomats on Saturday for high-level talks on Syria, a day after celebrations in Damascus and nationwide rejoicing at the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad. Syrians celebrated the day they called the Friday of Victory with fireworks heralding the fall of the Assad dynasty. More than half a century of brutal rule by his clan came to a sudden end on Sunday after a lightning rebel offensive swept across the country and took the capital. Assad's fall has also led to fast-moving diplomatic developments, with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken among envoys set to discuss Syria on Saturday in the Jordanian city of Aqaba. Sayyidnaya prison north of the Syrian capital Damascus has become a notorious symbol of the inhuman abuses of the Assad clan, especially since the country's civil war erupted in 2011. The prison complex was the site of extrajudicial executions, torture and forced disappearances, epitomizing the atrocities committed against his opponents by ousted President Bashar al-Assad. Syrian rebels announced that they had seized Sayyidnaya and freed its inmates as soon as they entered Damascus on Sunday. According to the Association of Detainees and Missing Persons of Sayyidnaya prison, the rebels liberated more than 4,000 people. Photographs of haggard and emaciated inmates were circulated worldwide. Suddenly, the workings of this infamous jail were revealed. In view of the escalating security situation in Syria, the Government of India has safely evacuated 77 Indian nationals from the conflict zone. 7 Indian nationals landed in New Delhi on Saturday morning. One more flight carrying evacuated Indians is scheduled to arrive this evening. The evacuated Indians described the experience of the war in Syria and also expressed gratitude to the Government of India for extending its support to them.
अरे बहुत मदद किया हमारी पूरा देखो वहाँ से बुलाए हम वहाँ से सीरिया से लेबनान के लिए ये बस में लेके आए फ्लाइट बंद है वहाँ से सीरिया से फ्लाइट बंद है बस में लेके आए फिर यहाँ से या ये लेबनान से डोहा लेके आए प्लेन में डोहा से इधर लेके आए अब यहाँ आपके सामने खड़े हैं आराम से
पर डे ऐसा कोई रात ना हो जो रात में हम लोग रॉकेट की आवाज़ ना सुने हो, गोली बंदूक की आवाज़ ना सुने हो। लेकिन हम लोग एम्बेसी को कांटेक्ट किए तो एम्बेसी हम लोग को सेफ जोन में लेकर गया, कोई खतरा नहीं था। बहुत सपोर्ट करा हम लोगों की एम्बेसी ने, बहुत अच्छे होटल में रखा, खाना अच्छे से खिलाया, लोग हर चीज़ की फैसिलिटी दी, पैसा से लेकर खाना तक हर चीज़ दिया उन्होंने, किसी चीज़ की कमी नहीं होने दी। यहाँ तक कि वहाँ इन लोगों ने टिकट भी कराया यहाँ तक 2 फ्लाइट की।
हम लोग वहाँ सीरिया में हालात ख़राब होने के बाद मतलब एम्बेसी से हम लोगों को फ़ोन आया कि मतलब आप लोग यहाँ से निकल जाइए। तो फिर हम लोग उस आंखों से देखी मतलब 3-4 किलोमीटर दूर पे मतलब गोला बारूद फट रहे थे, उसको देख के हालत बहुत ख़राब था। उसके बाद एम्बेसी से फ़ोन आया, उसके बाद हम लोगों को बेरूट शिफ्ट किया गया। उसके बाद वहाँ 4-5 दिन रखने के बाद हम लोगों का टिकट कराया गया है, टिकट करा के यहाँ लाया गया है। मोदी जी के लिए हम लोग बहुत आभारी रहेंगे।
मोदी जी का बहुत थैंक है इसमें, क्योंकि उनका एक स्वैग है आउट ऑफ इंडिया में। वहीं भी पाकिस्तानी लोग थे, वहीं लेबनान के बॉर्डर पे 36 घंटे से वेट कर रहे थे, लेकिन उन लोगों का वीज़ा नहीं लग रहा था लेबनान के लिए। लेकिन हम लोगों का वीज़ा जो है 5 से 6 घंटों में। तो इंडियन एम्बेसी उसके बाद हम लोग को 5 स्टार होटल में रखा बढ़िया से 3-4 दिन, कोई दिक्कत वाला बात नहीं है। खाना पीना खिलाया उलाया, मस्ती में रखा, एकदम दोस्त के थोड़ा। एम्बेसी के लोग थे, बहुत ज़्यादा कोऑपरेट किया हमारी वहाँ पे, उनको जैसा बोला सर ने बहुत हेल्प किया। बस फिर हम लोग इंडिया स्टे पहुँच गए। थैंक्स मोदी जी। और क्या हार्ट बीटिंग जो था एकदम अनकंट्रोल था पूरी तरीके से। अब जाके लगता है सुकून का नींद आएगा आज से। सब लोगों के लिए अच्छी मदद की है, 75 लोग को निकालना बहुत बड़ी बात है। हमारी टीम एमईसी पूरी तरीके से मतलब हम लोग जो आ रहे थे लगभग 1 किलोमीटर तक लाइन लगा हुआ था। सबको आगे करते हुए हम लोगों से उन लोगों से आगे निकलवाते हुए हम लोग को पास करवाए। जो 4 घंटे में लोग पास करते थे, हम लोग 1 घंटे में पास हुए।
And our correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh is joining us now from the newsroom in New Delhi. Shubhendu, tell us about how the evacuation process is being carried out.
Well, Munmun, this evacuation could be as dramatic as it could possibly be. We understand that Syria is, as we speak, a conflict zone. Therefore, the airspace had been shut down for some time. Therefore, the closest safe haven, that is Lebanon, could not be reached by plane. So the Indian mission ensured that the Indians who were to be evacuated were taken in a bus to Lebanon border, and the Indian mission officials accompanied those to be evacuated to Lebanon border. There, the Lebanon Indian embassy in Lebanon, their officials took over. They ensured speedy immigration. We also can stitch together a picture of how the experience must have been for these evacuees from what they shared. It is also a display of India's diplomatic prowess and goodwill at the same time, with the manner in which this efficient evacuation could take place. 77 Indian individuals have been evacuated to Lebanon, and from there, in batches, they're coming safely back home to India. Some landed in New Delhi this morning. 2 flights landed. Some 7 individuals came back home. More flights are scheduled. There is another one this evening, and then the corresponding days. It is expected till at least 1st of January next year. These evacuation flights will continue, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as MEA, has also said that more people who may be in trouble, who want to come back home, the mission will provide all possible help. Those who did want to have already been moved to safer locations in Lebanon. So that was how the evacuation took place. But what is also significant is the efficient manner in which it was coordinated by the mission officials. It was different from many other recent evacuations that we've seen, in that sense that it wasn't as if a mass of people were moved together. Here we see in batches, people are being taken to safety, and now they're coming home one after the other in commercial flights. Munmun?
Yes, Shubhendu, also how is the situation in Syria unfolding as we speak, and what do we know about talks on a post-Assad Syria?
Experts, Munmun, say that it is a transformative moment for Syria. There are hopes, expectations, at the same time concerns as well. The fall of Assad's regime is seen as a milestone for most people in Syria. They're celebrating freedoms that they could never imagine in past half a century under the Assad family, especially the brutality of the Assad rule as it is coming out one by one. Does put to light the new aspirations of the people of Syria. But there are concerns as well. The HTS group led by Mohammed al-Julani is still officially, if we look at the Western perspective, is still a proscribed terrorist, belongs to a proscribed terrorist group. Although al-Julani, in a certain recent interview to a media channel, has spoken about that he must be judged over his action, that his past does not merit the description of what his future plans are. In his address, he did envision a Syria where every individual, every community, minorities who've been in conflict with the majority population, he says that the new Syria will have space for everyone, and this fall of regime of Assad, in fact, marks a new beginning for Syria. But we'll have to see how words translate into action. Meanwhile, there are a lot of developments taking place in Syria. Israel continues to pound areas surrounding the buffer zone. Israel has its own concerns. We know that the Assad regime was particularly anti-Israel. Israel is concerned that there may still be ammunition, may still be groups which could come back to activity against Israel. So it wants to take this opportunity to ensure it completely cleanses parts of Israel that it sees itself sees as a threat for itself. Meanwhile, the United Nations has said that there's a new moment for Syria, and no country should exploit this opportunity or take over any region of Syria. The unity, the geographical unity of Syria is extremely important at this moment. There's another meeting underway in Jordan, as you mentioned, critical in the sense that leaders from the West, from EU, from the United States, from the Arab worlds are all sitting together to think about a way forward that is going to be inclusive, which is also going to speak about the unity of diverse factions. Remember, Syria has been defined for a long time by different factions competing for space and prominence. India also has put forth a statement in the context of the conflict that it hopes that unity would now prevail on a moment as historic as this, but it remains to be seen the manner in which Mohammed al-Julani, who seems to be the man in charge of the situation in Syria at the moment, the manner in which he turns to action the promises that he's made.
Shubhendu Ghosh reporting from New Delhi. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol is facing a second impeachment vote on Saturday after his short-lived declaration of martial law last week. He is far from the first South Korean president to see his rule descend into acrimony and scandal. So here's a look at the downfalls of previous South Korean leaders. In 2016, Park Geun-hye was impeached and jailed. In December 2016, he was president since 2013 and was impeached by Parliament, leading to her indictment and imprisonment. The daughter of former dictator Park Chung-hee, she was accused of receiving or requesting tens of millions of dollars from conglomerates, including Samsung. Park was sentenced in 2021 to 20 years in prison. But at the end of that year, she was pardoned by her successor, Moon Jae-in. Then there is Lee Myung-bak, who faced 15 years in prison in power from 2008 to 2013. He was sentenced in 2018 for 15 years in prison for corruption. Most notably, he was found guilty of taking bribes from Samsung. Roh Myun-hoon committed suicide. He was president from 2003 to 2008. He killed himself by jumping from a cliff in May 2009. He had found himself the target of an investigation into the payment by a wealthy shoe manufacturer of $1 million to his wife. In 1987, autocrat Chun retired. Military strongman Chung Do-hwan agreed to step down in 1987 in the face of mass demonstrations. He handed over power to his protege, Roh Tai-wo. In 1996, both men were convicted of treason over the 1979 coup that brought Chun to power. Roh was sentenced to 22.5 years in jail, while Chun was sentenced to life in prison. They were granted amnesty in 1998. In 1979, dictator Park was assassinated in October 1979 by his own spy chief during a private dinner. Then in 1961, Yoon overthrown in a coup. In 1961, that was led by an army officer, Park Chung-hee. Then in 1960, first president exiled. South Korea's first president, Syngman Rhee, was forced to resign by a popular student-led uprising in 1960 after attempting to extend his term through rigged elections. He was forced into exile in Hawaii, where he died in 1965. South Korea's opposition leader Lee Jae-myung urged ruling party lawmakers to side with the people and impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol on Friday over his failed martial law bid, a day before a second parliamentary vote that appears on a knife edge. A week after the first attempt to remove President Yoon over the martial law issue failed, South Korea's National Assembly will hold a vote on Saturday to decide whether to impeach him for insurrectionary acts undermining the constitutional order. 200 votes are needed for the measure to pass, which means opposition lawmakers must convince 8 ruling People Power Party colleagues to defect. 7 ruling party lawmakers had pledged to support impeachment till Friday noon. Meanwhile, protesters gathered outside South Korea's National Assembly on Saturday morning ahead of the impeachment vote. Some parliamentarians were seen outside the compound making a statement and shouting slogans before entering the complex, with protesters carrying placards and signs calling for Yoon's arrest standing nearby. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Georgia's political crisis deepens as far-right leader Kevlashvili is set to become president. Prince Andrew says he ceased all contact with an alleged Chinese spy.
So we begin our journey exploring the factories where cricket gear is made, uncovering the process that has made Meerut famous worldwide.
Meerut was one area which was allocated for sports industry.
They have done very well, they are making a cricket bat, cricket ball, or pads, leather goods.
All around the world, they get their bats made in India. So you can imagine the kind of work they put in, and it's not an easy job.
There is a lot of hard work, a lot of craftsmanship, a lot of precision that goes inside the product.
Bhattacharya. Georgia's political crisis has deepened as new pro-Euro protests gripped Tbilisi. These protests come ahead of the controversial nomination of a far-right government loyalist as president. Georgia's ruling party is set to appoint a far-right loyalist as president as thousands of people again prepared to take to the streets in pro-EU protests. The Black Sea nation has been in turmoil since the governing Georgian Dream Party claimed victory in contested October parliamentary elections. Its decision last month to delay EU accession talks ignited a fresh wave of mass rallies. Rallies are scheduled for Saturday morning local time, and Georgian Dream is set to install former footballer Mikhail Kavelashvili as president in a controversial election process. A Chinese national suspected of being a spy with ties to Prince Andrew has been barred from the UK due to concerns over national security. Prince Andrew says he ceased all contact with alleged Chinese spy after government advice. However, this is becoming an interesting case of how a spy can reach a person of influence and pose risks to national security for a foreign nation.
A Chinese businessman described as H6 did do in UK. Using his spying skills, he managed to be a close confidant of the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, a prominent member of the royal family of Britain. The Chinese national, believed to be working for the United Front Work Department of the Chinese Communist Party, was seen as capable of creating relationships between Chinese officials and prominent figures in the UK for political interference purposes. Suella Braverman, UK Home Secretary during her tenure in 2023, banned the Chinese spy from entering the UK on national security grounds. The man, known as H6, brought a case to the Special Immigration Appeals Commission to get the ban revoked. But he lost the case and the commission upheld the ban. Accepting argument by the Home Secretary in July 2023, officials claimed H6 had been in a position to generate relationships between prominent UK figures and senior Chinese officials that could be leveraged for political interference purposes. The Chinese spy was also invited to Prince's birthday party. Government officials were worried about potential misuse of influence as the Prince was reportedly under significant pressure at the time. They also said that H6 had downplayed his relationship with the Chinese state, which combined with his relationship with Andrew represented a threat to national security. Prince Andrew, also known as the Duke of York, acknowledged the government's advice and cut off contact with the Chinese national once concerns were raised. His office stated that all interactions with the individual were through official channels and nothing sensitive was discussed. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
A 6.3 magnitude earthquake shook the central Chile region on Friday, including the capital Santiago. As per the National Seismological Center of the University of Chile, the earthquake's epicenter was located 52 kilometers southeast of Curicó at a depth of 114 kilometers. The Hydrographic and Oceanographic Service of the Navy in Chile has ruled out the possibility of a tsunami on the country's coastlines. The Indian Air Force Academy in Dundigal, Hyderabad hosted the prestigious combined graduation parade today. The ceremony marked the culmination of rigorous pre-commissioning training for 204 flight cadets, comprising 178 men and 26 women who were conferred the President's Commission by Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, Chief of Air Staff.
The President's Colors of the Academy being honored.
The prestigious Indian Military Academy, Dehradun, conducted a grand passing out parade today, commissioning 491 officers, including 456 for the Indian Army and 35 for allied nations. The historic drill square in front of the iconic Chetwood building was the stage for the ceremonial parade, marking the culmination of rigorous training for officer cadets.
Captain Mahipal Singh.
In cricket, rain forced early stumps at Gabba. Usman Khwaja and Nathan McSweeney were otherwise forming a good opening partnership for Australia on day one of the third Border Gavaskar Trophy Test in Brisbane. Earlier, India won the toss and opted to field against Australia in the third test of the 5-match series at the Gabba in Brisbane. It could be a series-deciding game as both the teams are level at 1-1, with Australia making a remarkable comeback through the pink ball test that took place in Adelaide. India started the series with a dominating 295-run victory, but the hosts bounced back with a stunning 10-wicket win. Traditional female entertainers in Japan's ancient capital of Kyoto have exchanged early New Year greetings. In Kyoto's Yoon district, December 13th is regarded as the day for starting preparations for the coming year. Professional female entertainers known as Giko and their apprentices known as Maiko offer greetings to their teachers every year on this day. Giko and Maiko, wearing colorful kimono, began visiting the dance teacher, the leader of the Inu school of Kyoto's traditional dance and a living national treasure. One by one, students wished their teacher a happy new year and asked for her continued support. India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati has recently launched Waves, entering the field of OTT platforms. Waves provides a complete infotainment ecosystem to digital media and OTT audiences. If you also want great content for free, then download Waves today. That's it in this edition of DD India Live. But do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. This is Munmun Bhattacharya from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.